A new regime narrative just dropped featuring a bevy of bootlicking Nobel economists. As CNBC put it, here comes the weaponization of the economic numbers. The narrative in question was a letter signed by 16 Nobel laureate economists warning that Donald Trump could be an economic disaster, which would probably surprise Americans who actually remember when Donald Trump was president, inflation was 2% and growth was skyrocketing. Of course, every Nobel in question is an ideological left-winger, since that's how you get a Nobel these days. In fact, that's how you keep a university job these days. The Nobels claim that Joe Biden's economic agenda is, quote, vastly superior to Trump because Biden will spend on stimulus checks, imaginary climate change, and cronies, while Trump could implement, quote, fiscally irresponsible budgets. This is hilarious given Biden's record deficits, including the Orwellian-named Inflation Reduction Act that consisted of handing $1 trillion we don't have to climate donors, which no doubt thrilled some Nobel economists out there. So would Donald Trump be a disaster like Joe Biden has been, or would Trump be amazing like last time? So when it comes to presidents and inflation, there's two big moving parts: government spending and what they do to economic growth in the form of regulation and taxes. On spending, Trump 1.0 was pretty standard for a recent president, about as bad as Bush and Obama, but all of them were much better than Biden. It's actually surprisingly hard to compare presidents because disasters jack up emergency spending. So we had the 2008 crisis and, of course, COVID. Then the new guy pretends that the high water mark is the new normal. Still, trying to control for all that gives us something like $200 billion of additional spending per year under Bush, Obama, and Trump. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is on track to spend roughly $3 trillion above pre-COVID, which is about $500 billion per year, even after inflation. So yes, Trump spent too much, just like every single president since, about Warren G. Harding. And none of them come close to the fiscal catastrophe that is Joseph Robinette Biden. And then there's the other half, growth. So Trump was rocket fuel for economic growth. Incomes rose at historic rates, especially for minorities, women, and the young. Inflation was low for his entire presidency, and real household wealth soared. Meanwhile, Biden has pissed away $1.5 trillion of household income despite getting a freebie from lockdown bounce backs. He, of course, drove inflation to 9% and imported 11 million foreigners to take jobs from those same minorities, women, and young. What Trump did to grow the economy was partly his tax cuts, which rewarded production, and partly his deregulation, simplifying red tape, drill baby drill, and making it easier to start a small business. We can only imagine what he could have done if the deep state hadn't tried to sue everything he did to oblivion, but he seems to have learned and may go much harder this time. So in short, Trump wins on spending and he wins hands down on growth. So what's next? Brought to you by Unchained.com. At this point, we have two candidates running who have actually been president, meaning they have a public record. So however much ideological whores in media and Nobel laureates gaslight, the American people can see with their own eyes which president is, quote, vastly superior. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.